And we are back. Another year of building the board. We are on to our first positional episode. I am joined by Luke O'Grady. We are here to talk tight ends tonight. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. That was a crazy intro. I've never seen that intro before.
Yeah, I put some time into that last year.
You
Anyone
did that?
watching on YouTube gets to take a look at that. But I'm proud of that one. Proud
Yeah,
of it.
that's good. You did
But
that, eh?
yeah. Well, me and the skill enhancer that is Canva did
Right.
a lot of the
Yeah.
work for me.
Steve
But
says he does a bunch of stuff on Canva too. I gotta see. I gotta look into that more.
yeah, but yeah, we're here to talk tight ends. And the first thing we want to start these shows with is always, what do the Bears have a tight end right now? Like
Yeah.
what
State of the Union.
yeah. And so right now it's really just Cole Kmet, who isn't going anywhere. Like
Nope.
his contract is fair, like friendly enough.
Totally.
And he's done plenty in his career to say, even
Yeah.
though down last year might have been a little down, but
Yeah.
it's Cole Kmet's a good starting tight end in this league.
Totally.
Behind that, you got Gerald Everett. And Luke, what do you think's going to happen with Gerald Everett here?
I still think that Gerald Everett can be a good pro. I think he always kind of has been. Um, I think that like he probably plays the move tight end position. I don't think he gives you much as a blocker. I think we saw that this year. But I'd look really closely at that contract and see how much we're paying him and see if it might be something we could shed.
A $6.5 million cap hit with 5.5 million in savings if you cut him.
Really? Yeah, see, dude, that might be it for him because I like we can you can invest in a tight end in the draft and get save that money and spend it somewhere else. Which the
Mm-hmm.
Bears will probably there's probably a lot more important positions to address with that money. And on the flip side, there are probably some tight ends in free agency that you could get for a little bit less, just being a lesser name than Gerald Everett, that could at least give you what we got out of him last year.
Yeah, I think so too. And especially, I think they're going to want a blocker, like a guy who's a more reliable run blocker in there than a Gerald Everett. But with that being said, like you said, going through the draft, what amount of draft capital would have you sitting there scratching your head going like, I don't know about that for a tight end?
Yeah, like you'd have to marry it with like the value of the people we have in the draft. And I don't think that I have a first round grade on anyone in this draft, but like positional wise for the Bears need, I wouldn't want to see them do anything until at least the third round, maybe fourth. Like there's some players in this draft that I have second round grades on, so if they happen in the second, I could go, okay, maybe I get that. But as far as the need to the team, I think you start to do it on day three, like four and above.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be some nice options there of some players that probably fit that value a little bit more. Because, like you said, you have your starting tight end in Cole Kmet. He is a starting wide receiver in the NFL, and the fact of the matter is that position, especially in Ben Johnson's offense, is going to be on the field 80 to 90% of the time. The position you'd be looking to fill would probably be that like more X tight end position,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not as pressing of a need. I hate to see them use like that's a second round pick on that space. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so there are a few guys, and we'll get into them specifically here, where if they use number 41 or number 39 on one or two of these names, it would be like, on one hand, I'd be like, that's great value. I love the value for that player there. But then on the other hand, I'm like, but they're only playing what 40% of the
I
snaps
know.
at 39 or 41. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head. Third round is probably the earliest I could see it, and more
Yeah.
likely day three is where it probably makes the most sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is someone in this draft that if we took him in the second round, I would probably talk myself into. I think that we'll get to it, but there's a player that, as far as like the need for the team, like the role he plays, I think it would be perfect and actually kind of an exciting addition to the Ben Johnson offense. And I think it complements Cole well, and he kind of has that grade fit. It would be a little bit of a reach in my books, but there's pretty much only one person with those second round picks that I would imagine the Bears go with, or that
Interesting.
I would like kind of be okay with the Bears going with.
I'm interested to hear who that is as we get into it. But
Yeah.
as you're talking about fit and with Ben Johnson's offense, What are you looking for in that complementary tight end to Cole Kmet to be that complementary guy in the Ben
Yeah.
Johnson offense?
Like I think you saw a pretty standard like wide tight end type stuff that they were doing with Laporta, and I think that that's probably where you'll pencil in Komet. So I think like the stuff, like you'd be kind of almost be looking at like I think something like the way the Dolphins use like Johnny Smith, like as an H back, like off the line, and then even sometimes in the backfield, someone that's maybe not as big or as responsible in the blocking game, maybe like closer to like 6'3", but can move a little better and you can get going in motion and create some mismatches on linebackers and stuff. I would imagine that that's the kind of role that the Bears would be looking to fill, as well as someone in the Mercedes Lewis role of just another basically offensive lineman. Actually, honestly, if the Bears wanted to give him another contract, I'd be fine with it as long as he's used correctly.
Yeah, really. I mean, I think it's an interesting thing we're trying to parse through here because my thought process has been kind of the opposite of I look at Brock Wright with Detroit last year. I'm like, that's a blocker. That
Yep,
is a blocking tight end of blocking tight ends. Like
totally.
the guy it needs to be that, but it's not necessarily that black and white because we don't know what Ben Johnson's offense is going to be here. So there's a lot of gray area with does he want more of a Jonnu Smith type guy to be able to do
It's
that
actually a really
12
good point.
passing stuff?
Yeah, he did say that it was about like building your offense around your players. So it's like was it? And we said this about kind of like the way the game complemented Jairus Goff's style as well. Like, was he doing a lot of that 12 like two tight end on the line type sets because they had Brock Wright, or were they
Mhm.
like did they have Brock Wright because they wanted to do those sets?
Yeah, and it's interesting, and really, the more you dig into the Lions tight end stuff, the more interesting it kind of gets when you see, they shipped off TJ Hawkinson.
I know.
Like they said that this wasn't working right,
Yeah.
and I mean Sam Laporta is kind of a similar mold, but I'd say like I would say a more dynamic route runner, but
Yep.
it's just an interesting thought process of like I wonder how Cole Kmet's gonna fit into what exactly they want because clearly TJ Hawkinson wasn't it.
Yeah, I think that they probably thought Laporta gave them a little bit more as a blocker, and maybe like being able to say there are times in this offense when we need to rely on you to hold your blocker. None of this works. They thought maybe we can't get that done with Hawkinson, and like even just incrementally getting better in that area of Laporta was a big part of making that move. But I would also think that they probably think they have that in Komet. Komet's a
Yeah.
pretty solid all around tight end in the NFL. Like,
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing a reason why they would move on from Komet, especially since he's already been extended and
yeah,
like that contract is where it's at this point. And like
yeah,
I said earlier, I don't think there's anything to complain about with it, but
no,
it's it's signed, it's locked in, and I don't
yeah.
think you're moving it.
No,
Um,
no, I didn't mean it like moving on from him. I meant like I think that if they want to try like more of the move tight end, or if it ends up being the Ben
mhm.
Johnson just prefers to have two of those bigger blocking tight ends, you at least know you have one in Komet. So the way that they go with addressing that position will be interesting. I think we'll
Yeah.
kind of get an idea of what Ben Johnson's like dream offense is, because that's a hole he just gets to fill now in like the vision of what like his optimal playbook is. I
Yeah.
mean, this is all assuming he moves on from Gerald Everett.
Yeah. Which I mean, I don't know. I hope that that's just the case. I hope
Sorry,
it's just
Gerald.
like a big thing in that Detroit offense was right, like no block, no rock. Like I just have to believe Gerald Everett is not exactly what they're looking for. At least not what we saw from him
I
last
know.
year.
Yeah, agreed.
But with that being said, let's jump into some of these prospects and kick it off with Tyler Warren out of
Tyler
Penn
Warren.
State. What are your thoughts on Tyler Warren when you watch him?
This is I think we both agree. This is the best tight end in the class for sure. He's
Mhm.
actually not even the guy I was talking about at that 21 like spot, because I mean sorry, in the early round 2 spot, because like I was almost thinking like he might go before we get there. Like honestly, he- there's so like I'll bring up my notes, but there's so little to dislike about his game. Like he really tries in the run blocking game, and he like does a great job of putting himself between the play and the ball, and like knows his responsibility and closes off gaps well. He's like an unbelievable runner with the ball in his hand. He's way faster than you realize. He runs really nuanced routes and like hand fights really well, like a receiver, and his hands are like insanely reliable. He just like the very first note I had is this guy's just a pure tight end.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm with you. I mean, I have he is one of the handful of guys I have a first round grade on right now. Like I think I've
Yeah.
only got like 6 or 7 guys with a true first round, or I guess
Yeah.
9. I'm up to 9 guys with a first round grade, and he's one of them. Not to say I think he's going to go top 9 because I'm not sure a tight end will, but there is when I was trying to put together weaknesses for his scouting reports, like I'm really nitpicking. I was talking about route running details and his release when he's lined up out wide, and it's like, these aren't things you care about for a tight end prospect.
Totally.
The stuff that you care about, the tenacity as a blocker, the fighting through contact in his routes when a linebacker is just mugging the hell out of him, that he does a lot of stuff well, and he's athletic enough to run wildcat offense at the college level.
Yeah, he's like just a football player.
Yeah, I think he's the clear tight end one in this class, and a guy who I don't expect to be there for the Bears in the second round.
No.
But moving on to the next guy on our list was Colston Loveland. Do you have any thoughts on Colston?
What do I have here? I said really elite route running, like good hand fighting, really quick feet, understands how to get open. Like there's a little bit of Travis Kelce to his game. That's high praise, but like that's kind of the way he plays. He has a good feel for just getting open. I think like Evan Ingram is a good comp. Like I wouldn't say it's his floor because because Evan Ingram's a really good pro, but that's a lot like his game. He's a little bit thin, but I looked at his like his measurables, and he's not as thin as I thought, which is surprising. I wonder if he could maybe be used in line more than I realized.
I think he's listed at 245, I believe, right now. I think his frame can support more mass.
Yeah,
he's
for sure.
like 20 years old. The one thing that stood out to me in his tape more than anything, being a big O-line guy, there is not a player on the football field this guy doesn't think he can block.
Nice.
He is tenacious. He wants to get after you. He is just a dog. He is the biggest dog of a blocker in the most want to of a blocker that I've seen.
That thing you actually can't coach.
Right. You can't. Like this guy, Jim Harbaugh, this is his favorite player on that team. I'm sure of it when I watch his tape.
Good point.
Because like you said, there's stuff to like in his route running and all that. Truly, I mean, I put his ceiling comp as George Kittle. I don't think he's
that's
George
exactly
Kittle.
Who I thought.
Yeah, because the tenacity, you just can't teach that. And he has that in spades. I do have a little concern. He had some injuries this year. I'm not sure what exactly those are, how those will affect his draft stock. But really, I have a second round grade on this guy, and I have a really hard time not pushing it up to a first round just based on the fact that I know every scout in the NFL watches this guy's tape and instantly loves what he's bringing from the mental aspect of the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. I battled with where I had a grade on this guy. I had him as the same grade as Tyler Warren because I was like kind of hesitant to give a first round grade to Tyler Warren, strictly from like how much like I think you should be like committing some of your resources to the tight end position.
Right.
So he might end up being like a third round grade for me, but him and the next guy that I think we both agree is our third tight end. These guys are the only. I think these guys are all kind of in the tier by themselves for me. I have these guys. There might be one that sneaks in that I think me and you have differences of opinion on, but I think these are the only guys I have with a third round grade or above.
Yeah, no, I mean I think these top 3 are like far and away above the rest of the field, and like Colston Loveland's one of the guys who said the Bears picked him at 39 or 41. Like, I'd be excited. This is a football player I would always be excited to add to your team, but I'd be sitting there kind of scratching my head like, I'm not sure I like the value though for your tight end too.
I get that, but he would complement Cole Kmet really nicely.
He would. I mean, I think he is the really when I was doing Tyler Warren's scouting report and writing up the Bears fit section of it, I was like, I think he's too redundant to Cole Kmet. I'm not sure it makes sense.
Exactly. I had the same thought. There's a couple of guys like it where I'm like, if we didn't have Kmet, I'd have so much fun taking a risk on you.
But with Loveland, I think he complements Kmet pretty well. Totally. So like that's another really interesting aspect for me. And another guy who, if we're talking about that more Jonnu Smith role, Harold Fannin Jr. Man, I know. What are your thoughts here?
This is the guy I was talking about when I said that like you might get like you could draft him alarmingly early, and I would be like, I'm okay with it because I just completely love his game, and I think that there isn't a player in the draft that complements what you would want from Komet and what you would allow you to do with the other tight end with Harold Fannin Jr. We may, I mean, it will remain to be seen how Ben Johnson wants to go about building his tight end room. But I just think that this guy gives you so many cool options as far as movement and stuff behind the line of scrimmage and getting people going in motion, as well as giving you some stuff as a blocker. Like I think what you were doing with Gerald Everett with him in the slot and then asking him to block sometimes while also being a receiving threat. I think that's stuff that you really like with Harold Fanning. I watched the tape and was like, this guy's good, but he's 6'1", and he's 6'3.5" his Senior Bowl measurements, and I was like, dude, like I literally thought I was watching like Deebo Samuel type player, and that's one of the notes I have is this is if Deebo was a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think that's a fair assessment. Like he's different. He is just flat out different, and I'm a big fan of when you see someone that's just different, digging into that and diving into it and saying like, because if they're different at the college level, a lot of times they're different at the NFL level, and not different
receiving yards.
Yeah, right. Like, and obviously he's playing Matt in the MAC, and like it's a little different, but
getting some action.
He put up like 270 yards this year against the Power 4 teams he played in 2 games.
A great game against Penn State.
Yeah, he carried that offense in the Penn State game. Like, he's a lot of fun to watch, and whoever gets him is gonna have just a chess piece that they can move wherever on their offense and always be dangerous. And he is dangerous as a move blocker too. Totally. And I think that gets underrated. Yeah.
He wants to block too. That's a great point about like, that like that's something you can't really teach, and you got to make sure that your guys at least have a willingness to, and it comes in spades with him.
And one of the things that I dug in a little more on him and his profile was, why did he end up at Bowling Green? Right. This guy was an all-state defensive back in Ohio. Like, coming out of high school, he played defensive back and quarterback, I believe. Either quarterback or wide receiver, one of the two. And his grades slipped during COVID. He was graduating high school during COVID. His grades were in the dumps.
COVID is crazy, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he got completely overlooked through that. And Bowling Green said, okay, we believe in that. Like, after meeting with him and talking with him, like, we believe in the individual. We believe he can excel at tight end. And we believe we have the people in our building or in our facilities, in our school, to get his grades on track. So we're going to go all in on him and get him to Bowling Green. And they did. And they've reaped the benefits of it because he has been outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, he's you can never ask him to be a wide tight end. He's purely going to have to go to an offense that has like an H back, but that's fine. Like I think he could go to something like the Packers or something like.
Well, don't go there.
I know, yeah, or like San Francisco or Miami, even like similar to what they do with Jonnu Smith.
Yeah,
he would just absolutely kill it. Like that would be the kind of way you got to use him. Like get him in motion. Get him like doing some misdirection behind the line of scrimmage. But the thing is even if you want to go line him up in the slot and run slants in the red zone, like his route running and his feet are really, really impressive too.
Yeah, no, it's he just has different movement skills, right? Totally. You don't see tight ends who can move like him often, and that's it's almost like, I mean, I complimented Isaiah Likely because I thought I saw some similarities there, but I'm almost wondering, like, he reminds me a little of Eric Ebron too, but probably a little more, has more dog in him than Ebron did.
Yeah, and probably a better like overall receiving option than Ebron did. Though I was watching, I don't know how it came up recently, and I kind of maybe was sleeping on his game in college, but it also you're also playing at Bowling Green, like you said, so sometimes it is easier to look like better, but he really does just move different. He's he tracks the ball so well downfield, like he's just a football player.
And he, again, another guy who was running wildcat quarterback as a tight end.
Yeah.
And getting like just doing some wild stuff as a wildcat
fully.
quarterback.
And like his speed is like when he gets to his top speed, he's really moving.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when I watched him, I thought he was like 6'1", and I was like, he's fun. And then I looked at the numbers from the Senior Bowl, and he was 6'3", and he was 238 pounds, which again is a little undersized for a tight end, but it's 2 pounds different than what like what's his name Brock Bowers was 2 pounds
Yeah.
lighter than he was.
Oh, and I didn't even think about looking at the Brock Bowers comp there.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm excited to see what he does at the combine. I really am. I think he's gonna blow the doors off the place. But moving on to the next guy, and I'm wondering if this might be where we have a little bit of difference in our rankings. Next guy I had was Gunnar Helm, who I have, I think, a 3rd round grade on. Let me see. Gunnar Helm out of Texas. Yeah, I've got him at 6.84, so that's like a 3rd round grade. What are your thoughts on Gunnar Helm?
He was not mine. He's not my next guy on the board. He might be 2 or 3 down, but I actually like this game. I think this class is it's pretty nice. The tight end class in the whole, so it shouldn't be an indictment of him that he's maybe 4th or 5th, or sorry, 5th or 6th. I thought he was a little stiff, but not in a terrible way. Kind of like the same way that you could say that Gronk was definitely a stiff player, but like you almost use that tightness in a good way. They've moved him like they got him on the run a lot. They love that like backside screen to like the flat, but like they use him on the move a lot. But just based on his size and how much faster some of the move tight ends are in the NFL, he'll probably have to be like strictly a Y guy in the NFL. But he has great hands. Like he's a natural catcher. He can make the tough catch. He's got some good stuff after the catch too. Honestly, I just think they didn't use him a ton at Texas.
Yeah, I full on the record, I hate watching Steve Sarkisian's offense. I hate it. I just it is so hard for me to decipher things sometimes. It's so designer the way everything is
Moves.
For one specific thing, and it's
totally.
just like I just it seems like chaos to me, and I can't stand watching it. But Gunnar Helm, I actually didn't like his tape that much, if I'm being frank. I think that he should be a better blocker than he is.
Yeah, it doesn't really give you much there.
He has size.
And as his like stats, as he's gotten more snaps in the offense, it's only really gotten worse.
Yeah. And I think he shows enough want to in his blocking for me to buy him in line. And I think his future has to be in line. I think he has the ideal frame for an inline tight end. And that's why he's my tight end for. Because I think NFL teams are going to look at this guy and say, he can play every snap.
Yep.
Like, I don't think there's any question in his frame. And I think that I see enough want to as a blocker that I'm like, okay, his floor is higher than some of these other guys just because of that. Even if I don't think his tape's as good, if his ceiling's as high, his athleticism is quite as good, that floor is higher for him. And he makes some circus catches. Like he can go up and get the football.
Yeah, totally.
And he really knows how to use that frame to box out.
Yeah.
And to me, as long as if you have that frame, you have the tenacity at the catch point, which I think he has, and you have enough speed to threaten vertically and enough agility to cut those routes off and break on them, then I'm like, you're going to go high in the draft. Like you just are, because you have so much going for you as a Y tight end. That's why I have him here, even if I think there is a lot of development for him to still do.
Yeah. He's not a very high ceiling prospect, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling I have for him is like a key contributor. Like, I think my comp for him is Jake Ferguson. Like, that's kind of what I see. Like, Jake Ferguson, Dalton Schultz, like those inline tight ends who are never quite Pro Bowlers, but they're always good.
All right. I like that. Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think he was underused a little bit. He had a knack for, like when he would have a good game, like he could put up a good game, but he could also disappear for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think Jake Ferguson is like a great one. I don't know if he'll ever be like, a top 10 wide receiver or like a statistical tight end in the NFL, but he probably won't sink your ship on offense.
Yeah. All right. Next up here, we have a guy who I'm thinking that you probably have ahead of Helm is Elijah Arroyo. Am I right in that?
Yeah. Actually, I have both. I have both of these guys right around the same. There's probably only one guy I have above them. Well, let's see. Well, actually, I have a couple of 4th round grades, honestly.
Okay, and to be clear with that, Gunnar Helm and Elijah Arroyo's grades are neck and neck for me.
Yeah. That would
different reasons, but very, very similar grades overall.
Yeah. Elijah Arroyo. It's actually funny you made the comp about Isaiah Likely for Harold Fanning, and I had that kind of comp watching Elijah Arroyo. I thought maybe a little bit like Darren Waller as well, but he wouldn't be an inline tight end. He's a little bit of a smaller guy that would probably be off the line, but he's got nice hands. He can rumble. He can run away with the ball with the ball in his hand too. Like he's a guy that you would scheme up some touches for. Does a good job finding the soft spot in the defense. Pretty reliable at that too. Honestly, he just seemed like he was a good security blanket for his quarterback. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I had to temper myself from falling in love with his film at times because, like you said, Darren Waller. I saw Darren Waller out there, and then I go to mock draft and look at the numbers. I'm like, Darren Waller was 6'6", he's 6'4". That's kind of that's a pretty big difference. But I mean, I put his ceiling comp at Darren Waller and most likely at Noah Fan. Like that. That's kind of where that mold of tight end where like I don't know if I can ever trust them as a blocker in line or even like Arroyo played in an offense that forced him to block and said you need to block if you need to play. And he has some nice moments. He has a lot more moments where he's out of control and landing on his face. Yeah. So from the blocking standpoint, I think that's his big limitation going in the league. I'm not sure if he has much room to add mass at 245. He looks like he's a pretty maxed out frame to me, but that's fine. If you're drafting him to be the move tight end, that's perfectly okay. Yep. I think his ceiling is as high as the team that drafts him understands that. Because if you try to make him an inline tight end, I think he's going to struggle in his career. If you play to his strengths, like that, getting him into space and getting him the football and letting him roll with it, letting him run some more creative routes, more cutting routes, I think there's a lot to work with there. And I just hope he goes to a place that lets him really maximize that skill set.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Now, next up here, I've got Jackson Hawes, and this is, I know I'm an outlier on this.
Okay, wow, it's crazy you say that because I didn't agree at all. So, well, I thought that I didn't agree at all, but I had likely 2 rounds different than you. But I would love to hear. Give me your pitch.
So, you're probably right. He's probably like I've got a 6.45 is my grade. Let's see our scale. I've got a 4th round grade on him.
Right.
This dude is the best blocking tight end in the class.
I knew it, and I get that. I'm actually going to say that if your argument is that you draft this guy and you get yourself an extra offensive lineman that can catch the football, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he can barely even catch the football. He's barely been asked to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And even when he has, like, he's had drops. But you know what? This dude is a difference-making blocker. And we see, like, Payne Durham a few years ago go in, the late 4th round? These guys go around there if you're that skilled of a blocker in my mind. And this guy was like Georgia Tech. How'd they stick with people all year and pull an upset or two? It was their running game and Jackson Hawes lead blocking the whole way. Yeah. Like, I think if I didn't have the Ben Johnson offense in my mind and what Detroit did last year, I might have Jackson Hawes a little lower, like probably like a 5th round grade. Yeah. But because I'm thinking through that lens, I'm pushing him up my board. I think any run game coordinator in the league will flip this guy's tape on and go, you see, that dude just created 3 extra run lanes on one play.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
So that's the entire pitch with Jackson Hawes.
Yeah. And it's actually funny you say that because I thought he was like slightly underrated, maybe like depth, certainly underutilized as a receiver as well. I thought he was pretty reliable, like when they needed him, and he has some nice stuff on that tape. But there's no doubt about it. Like he's a complete difference. Like he's a pure inline tight end, but he's a pretty big difference maker in the blocking game.
Yeah, the comp I had for him, if you remember the early Lamar Jackson days of the Ravens, I had Nick Boyle. Like
Nick Boyle. Wow.
Nick Boyle. Like just the guy ain't there to catch passes.
And actually, Nick Boyle was a nice piece of that offense.
I know. I mean, he was. And here, stat for Jackson Hawes that fights against him and against my whole case: 7 career drops on only 77 targets. Like,
wow.
Yeah, that he's not there to catch the football. But there was this quote that I found from him the other day. Yes, I went down a huge rabbit hole on Jackson Hawes, but this quote was, "The human is the greatest opponent you can have. You have to use tactics, force, violence, strength, grit, and determination to tip the game in your favor. Like, I think coaches are going to fall in love with this guy.
That's the guy that gets it.
Yeah. But next up here, we have Terrance Ferguson out of Oregon. And I'll be honest, I don't have many strong opinions on Terrance Ferguson, but what did you think when you watched him?
It's funny you say that. My very first note: good speed, little better better quickness. Neither are amazing.
Yeah, I mean
I said he gets too. It feels like he actually gets tackled way too frequently on the first tackle attempt for me, which is like kind of loses a little bit of that like luster, considering you're kind of going to be a receiving tight end or a guy that we want to get the ball in your hand type thing. I think he has some all right route running in the slot. I think he's probably that'll probably be like what his optimal usage is like that, like offline tight end. I'm not really sure he's going to give you much as an inline blocker. But I kind of agree with you. Like he didn't really wow me, and I'm surprised some of the takes I see out there of like where some people have him ranked. Maybe find some older film or something.
Yeah, I mean I just felt very mid about everything I saw from his tape. It was like athletic enough to maybe be a quality inline tight end in the league, but and his blocking was good enough, but like everything just felt like good enough to me. It didn't. I didn't know if there was any ace cards, anything that really stood out about his game, other than just being able to find space on an offense that's built to find space. Like so that's always kind of a question with me when I'm watching Oregon. How much of this is the offense versus the player, and in the back of my mind, I can't help but wonder that. But moving on then to Mason Taylor. This is Jason Taylor's son, NFL Hall of Famer Jason Taylor. Yeah, and he plays for LSU. Now, what did you see when you watched Mason Taylor play?
I really liked Mason Taylor. I have a higher grade on him than everyone we've said so far, other than Harold Fannin, Colston Loveland, and Tyler Warren.
Yeah, this is. I think this is I think he's a polarizing prospect.
Interesting.
If I'm frank, and like I think Dane Brugler talk about him as like a top 2 round guy, and when I heard that, I was like, I was taken aback. Okay. Which maybe I just watched the wrong games, but I mean, I don't know. I did not have nice words for him on the scouting report that I wrote. I don't think.
Let's hear it.
Does he realize he's a tight end? He seems very contact averse and struggles to fight through physicality in the route. Like, I mean, I think I heard Jason Taylor's son. I was like, defensive lineman, Hall of Famer. This guy's going to be a tight end. And he's not. I just don't see any dog in him. I don't. Maybe I'm overweighing that, but I want to see a guy who's more willing in the contact than I do.
Yep. Interesting. I have a 4th round grade on him. But that was in line with what I had on Elijah Arroyo, and probably a little bit of a higher grade on Gunnar Helm as well.
Well, so mine's actually 4th round as well. It's just a lower 4th than
that's kind of where I'm
the
at
previous guys.
Yeah. I said he has some nice moves. He moves well, especially for his size, which are kind of like famous last words. But I think he's a nice player. I think he could probably play X or Y at the next level. I think he's a really good athlete. They like to get him in motion, and he looked good there. But his size and his frame, like he's a big fella. I actually thought, honestly, he has a little Cole Kmet to his game. I thought.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think the ceiling is there for him.
Yeah.
I liked the athleticism. I thought he had real natural hands catching ability with vertical speed to threaten the stem. I thought he had some nice shake in his routes and a good feel for space. It was just, I mean, I'm sure as you've learned so far, I get offended when I see a guy who is that contact averse, and I did not like it. It was just very hard for me to get that out of my
probably
head.
have better eyes for that, honestly. Like sometimes when I'm really like, if I'm like into like game 3 or 4 of watching someone, like I'll see a run blocking play and I'll be like, just skip it for a second.
Yeah, like that's fine.
I'm trying to see some routes here. This guy's 6'4" can run.
And who knows? Maybe that's something. Maybe it does get better in the NFL, and he's being very cautious about injuries at the college level or something. It's just, I don't know. It put me off of him, and I'm sure I'll go back and watch more and make sure that my eyes weren't deceiving me that day, or I didn't, jump straight into his tape coming off of like some
Road rage.
Some what's his name? The
Jackson Hogg.
Some Kelvin Banks tape or something where I'm just seeing a guy
Yeah.
road grade and then I go to him and I'm like, what is this? Like, that can happen, and I'll go back and take another look. But my first take on it was just like, I need some more from you, man.
Yeah, that is funny. You go watch an offensive lineman grind for an hour, and then you go watch a tight end, and you're like, what is this guy doing?
Well, hey, if it's Colston Loveland, I'll have no problem.
Seriously, man, he has such nice tape. I honestly think he's probably just a little bit bigger than Brock Bowers, but I really don't think it's crazy to say that they're very far off as prospects. And I know that like you could say Brock Bowers is one of the greatest tight end prospects of all time, but they seriously that's how highly I think of
Loveland.
Yeah. Or sorry, no, I was talking about
Fannin?
Yeah, nope. Even one more up.
Oh, Warren?
Warren,
yeah. Yeah, I mean I feel like you can make such a strong case for all those top three guys. It's just such a strong class in that aspect. But let's see. So next up, we had Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. If you want to talk about the cheap Cole Kmet comp, this one's here all day for you. But,
dude, I really liked Mitchell Evans.
Yeah, I mean, I did too.
Mitchell Evans is like Mitchell Evans would come in. Mason Taylor would probably be my fourth tight end, and Mitchell Evans is probably my fifth. Like I really like his game. I think he gives you some. Like I think he's a really good blocker. I think he's a smart blocker. I thought he could be a little bit soft, but then I also the note under that I said maybe I'm being harsh. He's not exactly a plus athlete, but maybe he's a little bit underrated. He actually has awesome hands and runs pretty good routes and gives you a little bit of yak too. Like I think that if you don't have a wide tight end right now in the NFL, like if a team if a team fell in love with Mitchell Evans, it wouldn't surprise me. He's an athlete, just like a football player.
Yeah, no, I mean, and he's a little lower for me just because I think his ceiling is lower. I think his floor is pretty stable. Like I think this is a guy who's gonna stick in the league for a decade. I'm not sure if that'll be as a starter, as a fringe starter, or as a backup, but he's gonna be around because he brings you that requisite level that you need at the Y tight end spot that is hard to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you're running a 2 tight end set, he's awesome for you. Like I think he's like honestly, his game is very similar to Tyler Warren's. If like you just lost like 5 or 6 attribute points in every category.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, so I have, let's see, on Mitchell Evans, I've got him graded at a 6.08. So on our scale, that's still 4th round. That's late 4th round. I have a run on tight ends in the 4th round, apparently.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I think this is a guy who makes a lot of sense for the Bears in somewhere on day 3, like 4th round, anywhere really.
I was kind of thinking that the Bears are going to be going with a littler tight end because of Cole Kmet, but you did make a really good point about what we were seeing in Detroit. And if he has, which he has, talked about how important the run game is and like his dedication to the run, someone like a Mitchell Evans to go with Cole Kmet would make you absolutely nasty on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last guy I have listed here is it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Jake Briningstool was one of the top tight end prospects in the country coming out of high school, but went to Clemson. What did you see on Briningstool's tape?
He's a receiving tight end. He's pretty lean for how tall he is. He almost looks like Equinemius St. Brown. Like he's a water fast away from being a wide receiver almost. I was actually watching his tape and thinking to myself, like, how different is this guy than Tet McMillan? But, I thought he's got some attitude, and I kind of like that about him. He's got some good stuff at the point of the catch. Like he'll give you some stuff as a wide receiver. Doesn't really give you much blocking at all. And like I think I don't know how much of a plus athlete he is enough to like really give you too much of a ceiling on the receiving side. I had a 5th round grade on him.
Yeah, I think I've got my grade is right around 5th as well on him. And really, he was interesting to me, man, because, I mean, guy who talks the talk and tries to walk the walk is kind of the vibe I got from him. Like, he has dog in him.
He does,
He
100%.
has no problem barking at you and letting you know, and even throwing his hat in the ring.
Oh, I have
He
a
ends
note
up
here
on his
that
face a
says,
lot once he throws his hat in the ring, but
I know. I have a note here that said he just straight up walked up to someone and called him a little ass boy. So there's that.
yeah, that's what it
Way too
seems
nice
like
guy.
all over his
Exactly.
tape. And then the very next play, he drops a pass over the
I
middle. It's
know.
like, come on, man! If you're gonna talk it, you got to do it.
Fully.
Um,
He's not scared of it.
no, he's not, and I appreciate that.
I do.
Honestly, this guy's not afraid of failure by any means. Like the thought of failing is not going to prevent him from trying
No,
things,
no.
and I do appreciate that. I think he's a really nice athlete, really nice size, and I looked at his frame and thought this guy could probably add some mass,
Yeah,
and who
100%.
knows from there.
He's running
So
around pretty lean right now.
I do think he's a heavy developmental guy. I think he has a lot to get better at, a lot of discipline to learn, but I'm interested. Like I am absolutely interested in him in the 4th, 5th round, like late 4th into the 5th.
Yeah, I had the same grade on him as I did on Terrance Ferguson. I thought they're like slightly similar prospects. I don't think they give you much on the blocking side, but they're pretty good. They have some really good receiving stuff on tape, and then they have some really not so good receiving stuff on tape.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is. Let's see. 'Cause I'm kind of surprised I have Terrance Ferguson ahead of Evans, if I'm being honest. I'm not shocked that I have him ahead of Taylor and Briningstool because Briningstool is so unpolished, and I just felt offended by Taylor's tape. But like, yeah, I'll have to go back and take another look at Ferguson because I think it's kind of the age old, like, PFF grades a guy who's never doing anything bad ends up getting a pretty decent grade. I think there was some of that to Terrance Ferguson's tape of like he never wowed me, but he also never made me like drop my pen and walk away from the computer for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So like there's something to be said for that.
There was I don't know if you've there was a tight end. There's a tight end that PFF had rated. I was looking at him today. Let's see if I can find him. Oh, Aronde Gadsden.
Yeah.
And 3 straight years of 80 plus PFF grades, and I was like, okay, I watched it, and it was literally that. It was like, okay, he just doesn't do much wrong. Like it's like it could not have been more mid. It's like, is that really enough to get you 3 straight years of 80 grades?
Yeah, I've watched 2 games of Gadsden, and I mean he is right below Briningstool in my ranks. I didn't mention him just because I didn't feel like I had much to say about him. Like he seems fairly athletic, like pretty athletic. Like he's a good pass catcher, but like it felt like Elijah Arroyo light to me watching him with more aversion to contact. Like it was a mix of Elijah Arroyo's receiving ability damped down a little, mixed with Mason Taylor's physically. And I was just like, I've got nothing to say on this.
He just didn't seem like he was a very good athlete. At least, like he did. Like there didn't seem to be much explosion to how he was moving, and he was just stuck somewhere between a big receiver and a small tight end. He's like 230 pounds.
Yeah. Well, so I remember thinking the same thing about his athleticism, and there was like 1 or 2 plays where it was like, okay, he let it rip there. Why is he hesitant all the time? Yeah. So like, I don't like, there's that different level of process. I think as a route runner, he wasn't as athletic as with the football, like that whole processing point of it, how that can damp down someone's athleticism. So like, I do think there might be something there with Gadsden. I need more. If you need to learn that much on the receiving side, I need you to show more physicality, because you gotta earn your roster spot somehow.
Exactly. And exactly. And doesn't seem to me that he's going to be a big difference maker on the receiving side of the NFL level.
Yeah. And then let's see. I also watched Luke Leachy out of Iowa, and I'm not sure if you've seen any of him, but I was just very, I don't know. Again, I was probably going in a little over expecting because Iowa tight end, everyone, it's the whole big thing. And like last year they had the guy come out of Iowa, come straight in the NFL, start doing stuff again. So to the Bengals.
Who was it last year?
I forget his name. He was a Michigan transfer. No, it wasn't Sample. It was Michigan transfer who went to Iowa, then had some back injuries.
I know exactly who it is. He came on in the last like 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah. And I liked his tape. There were some serious red flags in his tape too for me. So it was like I wrote it off without watching enough. Like it was like he was slow off the line of scrimmage, and like he seemed like he was lost at times. But then it was like when he got his chances, it was like, okay, this guy can move. But on the Luke Leachy standpoint, I didn't see much there. In fact, I felt like I was watching Drew Sample. If you've ever watched Drew Sample, like it's just kind of like he's there, he's in the way. He's not really an aggressive blocker, but he's not unaggressive. He's just kind of there as a receiver. He's like he can catch the football. He passes that test, but like I didn't see a lot to be excited about.
Did you watch Ben Urasek?
I have not gotten to the Georgia, so I haven't gotten to Urasek, CJ Dipri, Gavin Bartholomew,
I think
Malachi Matavo, or Oscar Delp yet.
I think Delp went back.
Oh, did he? Okay, good to know.
Delp was their starter. So, and honestly, Ben Urasek only got like 300 snaps this year, and then 300 snaps the year before too. So there's not a ton of tape on him. And he played for Stanford last year, but his tape is good.
Okay,
like there's some stuff there, and like it kind of almost feels like. Do you remember a couple of years ago when what's his name? Michael. He's the receiver for the Cardinals. Michael.
Mike out of Stanford,
yeah. Mike Wilson had back-to-back years of kind of getting injured and like not having a ton of tape, but like the tape that he had, it was like this is what you want a wide receiver to look like.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit higher on most, and I kind of get similar vibes with Urasek.
Okay.
Like he just looks like a really good wide tight end. Like he's another guy that you could probably say, if you wanted to compare him to someone, there is like some Cole Kmet to his game.
Yeah.
But in the best way. I mean, maybe even he's a little bit better with the ball in his hand. Now, I don't know if he gives you. I haven't there's not a ton of tape, so I need to kind of find more tape to like watch him do blocking and stuff. But he's an interesting prospect.
Okay, I'll have to check him out because I've been like looking at those guys and being like, I gotta watch these guys, but then I go look at their snap counts. I'm like, it's gonna be hell to find their tape, to find like their opportunities. So then I'm like, I'll just watch some more of someone else in the meantime because I've got plenty of guys to watch. So
yeah, no, I haven't. There's a couple. I haven't got to CJ Dipper. I haven't got to Leachy, like you said, or Jalen Connors, who I know a lot of people like. But that's really it.
I mean, Connors I don't even think I have him on my list.
Jalen Connors is out of Texas Tech.
I should know that being a Texas Tech alumni.
Are you?
Oh yeah, I'm a big Texas Tech fan. I always tell my wife Sundays are for football, so I can't make Saturdays about football. Otherwise, I might not have a happy marriage anymore. I don't follow. But as you said that, I was like, Jalen Connors, I know that name. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll have to take a closer look at him.
He's huge, but he kind of gives you some stuff as a slot receiver too.
Okay, interesting.
You might like he would be a blocking tight end, I think, just based on his size. But like, he can give you some stuff. He's got some versatility.
Okay,
but I haven't really watched him either. That's just from having like watched the college season.
Yeah, but Luke, any final thoughts on guys you think the Bears should be targeting, or you expect them to be really in on?
Well, let's look at this. Okay, let's bring up the Bears draft picks. I think like you kind of have to look at it from like where the value is and what we have to do. If you're picking in the first round, I don't think there's anybody there that makes sense.
Right.
If you trade down or you get into that those 2 early seconds that we have, like if he's still there, Tyler Warren makes sense there as value completely.
Yeah.
But I don't imagine he is. So I think maybe the guys that we both agree that may make sense for the Bears to look at in that slot would be Harold Fannin or Colston Loveland.
Yeah. I mean, I think the value there might be strong for them in this class if they're sitting on the board.
Fully. And even then, I think that's probably early for tight ends. But, with Ben Johnson in the house, they did a similar thing with Sam Laporta. And you can see that the tight end position is an important one to the Ben Johnson offense. So it wouldn't be surprising if that's something I looked at. But after that, I think there's just a whole 5 or 6 guys kind of all in the same range where you can pick your flavor.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think if I'm being honest, I have Helm at that tight end 4 spot right now. I get heartburn thinking about picking him over some of these other guys, if I'm being honest with myself, even though I do think he will be high on teams' boards because of that skill set that he just has, and the physicality that he does show on tape enough of. But like, I'd have a really hard time taking him at like 71, thinking that I could get a guy like Hawes or Mitchell Evans in the fourth round. So
so
that's kind of where my head's
at. Him as your clear 4 with some chaos below that, but even then, you'd still probably bite the bullet at 72 and wait till you get to the 5th round and see what's left.
Yeah, that's where my head's at. Like if I can get a guy like Loveland or Fannin at 41, I might just do it. But if not, I'm probably waiting until the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked Mitch Evans, I liked Mason Taylor, and I liked Gunnar Helm. But I had 4th on all of them.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, if I go and watch more, there's a chance that I could move Mitch Evans up, and there's a chance that maybe Mason Taylor can move up as well. But I think if you're not taking one of those guys at 2, I think you wait to the 5th, and if you're still hoping to address it, or if you haven't addressed it in free agency, and then you see how the board falls there.
Yeah. Now, on a non-tight end note, I don't know if you've done many mock drafts, but I just did a bunch of them this weekend because I'm prepping for this week. I'll be on the Bare Bones podcast doing a mock draft with Mason West, and I'll tell you what, it was really hard to not take Ashton GT at 10 with the options that were sitting there looking me in the face of like.
I know. I'm really I feel like I'm really in the trade back boat right now.
Yeah, which I think everyone will be. That like everyone around 10 will be. So it's like, can you really trade back then? Like I ended up doing a few where it was like I got James Pierce at 10. And it was like I like that. I don't love it, but
really?
I like it.
I need to watch more. I haven't even really started much on the defensive side.
Well, so as I was doing it, I was like, okay, I gotta go watch James Pierce. And I watched more James Pierce, and I was like, okay, he has enough of a like special burst and has enough dog in him at edge that I'm like, okay, I can live with the run defense.
Yeah, you can take a bet on that.
Yeah. But outside of that, it's like if James Pierce isn't there at 10, it's really hard to not take GT by my eyes.
There's a couple of guys that like I haven't got a chance to really start to look at, but like from like public opinion and like from the positions of need and just from some stuff I've seen just watching the season, there's probably like 7 or 8 guys that I would consider taking at 10, like roughly with who would be there and what my value is there. And and if that's the case, just jump back 6 or 7 picks, let someone else fall in love and let the board fall to you.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's the ideal situation. Like I think that is what Ryan Poles is probably hoping shows itself to be possible here.
Are the mock drafts at the current, are they pretty typically doing 2 quarterbacks in the top 10?
I wasn't even paying attention to that.
Interesting.
It's a good question.
Because when I'm thinking of like the prospects that I think may have like blue chip ability, it's a big difference if you have to get through 8 rather than getting through 10 to try like before we get to pick.
Right, that is a big difference. Let's run one. See what
that's the difference between getting Mason Graham and getting Ashton Ginty.
So let's see. They had Shadur Sanders going at 2. That was it. That was the only quarterback going. And they had James Pierce go at 9. So I'm sitting here looking
James Pierce is going straight top 10, eh?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'm sitting here looking at Ashton Ginty, Malachi Starks, Will Campbell, Luther Burden, Josh Simmons, Tyler Warren as the top guys on the board.
Will Johnson already gone?
Yep.
Obviously. Dang.
Mason Graham's gone. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Tet.
Where'd Tet
Wait,
go?
no, I'm sorry. Cam Ward did go number 1, and I'm still looking at this.
Oh, dang, man.
Yes, they had Tet go at 4 to New England, and Mason Graham at 5 to Jacksonville, Abdul Carter at 6 to the Raiders.
Mason Graham over Abdul Carter, huh?
Yeah, that's surprising. Well, I guess, the Jaguars. they draft another edge. And then Mike Green at 8, Will Johnson at 7, James Pierce at 9. Like it's tough pickings after that, man.
It is. It's tough out in the streets. I'd have to look at I will like my big board will slowly come together here, but at that point it's like, dang, Ashton Ginty's still there on the board. A lot of people have been doing Will Campbell to us. Probably, if that's the case, it'd probably be someone that you're probably hoping to pencil in and start at guard. I think.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings on Will Campbell. Like, I mean, I think he's a tackle. It's just a question whether he can play tackle in the NFL. Like, I don't watch his tape and see a guard. I watch, like with Kelvin Banks, I watch his tape and I see a guard playing tackle. With Will Campbell, I see a tackle playing tackle. So it's like I start to question how good will this guy be at guard.
The thing is, dispositionally, I love him.
Yeah.
He's a pure offensive lineman.
Yeah.
He wants all the smoke. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's the kind of guy that, like, if he had the ability, he could be the leader of your offensive line group 100%.
100%.
He was at LSU.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it makes it a little bit easier to take a risk on a guy. But yeah, I think there are some. It's mostly an arm length thing with him, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's like if you're not drafting him to play left tackle, well, and if his arm length comes in strong, I don't think he's there at 10. You know, like.
Interesting.
But if his arm length is shorter and you're drafting him to play guard, then it's just I don't know. I'm sitting there going, there are guards that like better in the second round than him at guard. So like I start to question all that and end up in a really weird spot.
If you want a guard, draft a guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. That'll be it'll be fun to see how this all plays out. We get the combine coming up here really like sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean it'll be honest before we know it. But real quick before we close this thing out, we have a question in the comments asking why doesn't Chicago use Kmet as an offensive weapon? And I mean, my personal thought is that was probably more a Shane Waldron issue last year than anything. But Luke, where are your thoughts?
I mean, you can't really speak for that that regime anymore. It's a new day. So if we still aren't using him well in September, we got to go to the tape and find out why. But Bears just weren't looking at him. Caleb Williams gave him like one target in the last 3 weeks of the season.
It was weird, but it was also weird last year.
It was all so weird. Yeah. When something I thought about the other day was how much different the offense looked when they gave Caleb some stuff like that he was allowed to do at the line of scrimmage, and how starkly Thomas Brown said, no, we don't give Caleb anything at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because there was kind of a bottoming out there of Caleb at some point from doing all that stuff. And then when it got taken away, it got better before it got worse again, you know? So it's like, it's a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
I think ultimately handing him all that was probably too tall a task, but
yeah.
At the same time, we weren't in the room. We don't know how much coaching he was getting, how much good coaching he was getting, how much it was just like, hey, Caleb, go figure it out. You know, I don't know.
I know.
But Luke, I think we're about ready to wrap this thing up, unless you have any final thoughts.
No, I think it was good. We got through about, I don't know, 10 or 12 of those of the and there probably won't be that many more drafted this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that I've been on the fringes with trying to find the bottom of the draft pool.
Right.
I got to take a look at Urasek and the guy at Texas Tech now, but
seriously,
I don't think there's that much more
chance
to look at.
If the Bears are going to be drafting a tight end, or the Bears are even any one of your favorite teams will be drafting a tight end, there's a pretty good chance that it'll get covered. So this will be a good one to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, Luke, thank you for jumping on. Anyone watching, listening, make sure to go follow Luke on Twitter, X at Luke O'Grady, and you can find me at Buck His Stats. And you can find all of our scouting reports over at ontapsportsnet.com, where we've been writing up stuff about all these players. So check it out, and thank you guys for joining us.